Welcome back to my channel. My name's Emily, and today we have another Tag Tuesday, which is wonderful. I love Tag Tuesday. These videos are always so fun to kind of get to know everybody on here just a little bit better through answering these prompts, and this one to me is really kind of fun. This tag is the If I Owned a Bookstore tag. And this was created by Bob at Robert G, Reader of Books. And he's come up with a few really good original tags lately, this just being one of them. But I was tagged for this one by Kevin at Kevin Toll Reads. So I'll link him and his video of this tag below as well. But the general prompt of this tag is, it's time to indulge in a bit of fantasy. To imagine owning your own bookstore. In responding to the prompts below, pretend money's not an issue, quite a dangerous thing to tell a book lover, that you are independently wealthy, but remember moderation in all things. Aesthetic considerations are your only criteria. So, I don't know, I think this will be kind of fun. Prompt number 1, what are the hours of operation? Okay, so this is where it already starts to get tricky for me in making decisions on this, but I think I'm almost kind of bifurcating my bookstore into two kind of separate ideas in a way, because I want there to be kind of standard operating hours, you know, like 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. or something like that, where, you know, people can come normally during the day, look at books, people can bring their children and things like that. But I also kind of want this to be a bit of a late night spot. Because honestly, one of my favorite things growing up with my family was we didn't go out to eat all that often just because we had a bigger family. But when we did go out to eat, we would go to dinner, and then we would almost always go to our local Barnes & Noble afterwards to get a coffee and walk around the bookstore and pick a book. And it was just a wonderful way to kind of end the evening and wind down, and it was wonderful and enjoyable, and you could kind of see what everybody else in the family was looking to get, and it was kind of a great way to walk off dinner if you indulged a little much. And it was just sweet memories doing that. But so I want my bookstore to have a place for that. So I also kind of want it to be a late night spot. So I do want some later hours, maybe open until, or at least a portion of the bookstore I want to be open later, even if it's not the whole thing, to maybe like, it's gonna sound kind of crazy, but maybe till midnight, open till midnight. I'd like it to be a place where you could go after a dinner, have another drink, sit down and really talk with somebody, you know. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Okay, prompt number 2. Is there ambient music? What kind? Yes. Yeah, absolutely some ambient music. Probably along the kind of general classical, jazzy type of music. 3, is there a coffee bar? Do you serve alcohol? Yes and yes. Absolutely a coffee bar. The coffee bar can be open for the entirety of the operating hours. I'd like for like the late night part, I'm thinking kind of like a little like wine and whiskey bar, you know? Maybe an espresso martini. I just think that would be kind of cool. You could come after dinner, have a post-dinner cocktail, settle down for a nice book discussion with your date or a group of friends you're meeting, or I don't know, I just think that would be really nice. So, but that could just kind of, the wine and whiskey bar could be reserved for the late night section. Okay, prompt number 4. Are patrons encouraged to linger? Are there comfortable chairs? What kind of lighting? Are there tables? Are there areas for group gatherings? Yes, to all of this, yes, I absolutely want patrons to linger, particularly in kind of like the late night area. I'm picturing that part as being like very cozy, kind of like moody library, some darker wood, some plush leather chairs and couches. But yeah, doing some tables where people can get together and talk. And it would almost be kind of neat if there were like maybe some areas I could put where like there would be like a room that's a little bit more secluded if you wanted to have like a particular book club meeting that wasn't just kind of out in the open, if we wanted that to be a little bit quieter. So yes, I would love for this to be a place where almost like a bit of a lounge kind of area in the late night part, which is where I'm kind of putting a lot of my thought process on this bookstore. Prompt number 5. Is there live entertainment, poetry readings, authors readings from their current works, lectures in literature? I think that would be really nice to do. I'll admit that I have not taken advantage of things like that often at my own local bookstore, but I think that's a great thing to do to help promote things. And yeah, I'd love that. Especially, yeah, they can be out in the open or maybe in some of our back rooms or something like that if it's more of a private gathering. But yeah, I think that would be wonderful. Prompt number 6. Where is your bookstore located? In the busy heart of a large city, in a neighborhood of a large city, in a suburban strip mall, in a small town, in a rural area? Okay, I do think rural areas are very underserved when it comes to local independent bookstores and things like that. But what I'm kind of envisioning for this is probably something in like a mid-sized city. Not necessarily like in the heart of downtown, but maybe in a suburb where, in like a freestanding building. I don't really want it to be in a strip mall, but like maybe in a suburb or like on the outskirts of a downtown area where maybe people are leaving on their way out of downtown for dinner and make another stop, or if it's in more of like the suburb, it's more accessible to people during the day and things like that. But yeah, so I guess I'm kind of going middle of the road with this. I'm not thinking big city. I'm not thinking very rural. I'm thinking kind of like your average mid-sized city that could use something like this. Yeah. Prompt number 7. Yeah, 7. How does your bookstore look from the outside? Sleek and modern, dark and brooding. I'm probably gonna I don't want it to look like super modern really or anything. I would probably lean towards the dark and brooding because I think I'd like to emphasize more of the evening portion of the bookstore. Not that the rest isn't important, but I think that's the part that I would kind of like to emphasize a little bit more. So I think I would lean in that direction. And obviously like in the daytime, all that's gonna look a little bit lightened up anyhow. And obviously we can do different, like, brighter lighting inside and things like that during the day, so it's not so dim and cozy in that way. But prompt number 8, what's your specialty? Used books, new and used, only fiction, only nonfiction, fiction and nonfiction? Does your bookstore specialize in a particular genre? I don't think we specialize in a particular genre, but I do want to have a big emphasis on used books. I don't want to only have used books because I do think you need to have some new releases and things like that to keep things moving, but I would love to have a huge emphasis on used books. I live in a mid-sized city, and I lived in a smaller town before I moved here, and the smaller town I came from had multiple used bookstores. They were small, they weren't chains, but they were great, and we went to them all the time. And this mid-sized city I'm in now has one big chain used bookstore and one small independent used bookstore. And there is one other used bookstore, but it's much more of a used bookstore for like collector's items, not just kind of like your average book. And I was shocked that there was in a city of this size, that there was not more there for used books. And so I would really like to put some emphasis there, particularly in areas of like mystery and crime fiction novels, historical fiction. Oh yeah, I don't want to like limit it to any particular genre by any means, but I would just love to have a healthy used book section. I do want to have nonfiction. I don't know that we would focus on nonfiction, but we certainly need it. I think you need that. But yeah, I definitely want to have more than just your new releases. So yeah, I don't know. I just feel like every time I've been to our, local big box bookstore lately, I have just been so underwhelmed and disappointed by the selection they have. I just feel like I can never find what I'm looking for. And I don't know, it's just really kind of annoying. So I don't know, that's where I stand on that. But prompt number 9, what's the name of your bookstore? Ooh, maybe like Sips and Stories, if I'm gonna kind of go with the late night evening drink crowd, or Second Story, if we're gonna focus on used books, maybe, or maybe just Emily's Bookstore. I don't know. Could just be something that basic. Yeah. Prompt number 10, tag some friends. Okay, yeah, I will definitely tag a couple of friends down here. If I tag you and you've already done this, I apologize. But yeah, and if I don't tag you, please feel free to do this anyway. I'd love to hear what you want your own bookstore to look like. But this was a really fun tag. Thanks again to Kevin for tagging me, and to Bob for creating this really neat tag that lets us have a little bit of fun with some creativity. But I will talk to y'all soon. Bye.